know a lot about your personal life. Would you mind telling us, you're married, we got that. Tell us, share with us the children and...
The Greg Hero bio brief. So my father is a minister. I grew up in Wyoming primarily on little farms until I was 9 years old. And my parents were missionaries for the next 3 years in South Africa. So I moved to South Africa, was there 3.5 years, and my parents had immigrated there as permanent residents, and I were planning never to move back to the United States. But the apartheid situation became very difficult, and the South African government kicked out all the missionaries out of South Africa. So we were relocated back to the United States. My parents tried for 5 years to go back, but never could successfully get a visa back to South Africa. When I was 17, I joined the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps brought me to Southern California. I knew I was not going to be a lifetime Marine, so after a couple of years in the Marine Corps, I was working on a mid-crew, worked from 12 to probably 3 every day, and got my real estate license and started selling real estate while I was still in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So,
You were a kick-ass realtor, huh?
Yeah, literally.
I did specialize in the Cordovas in Mission Viejo, which is a low-income startup homes there in Mission Viejo, and did pretty well, and ended up becoming an assistant manager at 21 for Jerry Wilson from Central Mission Lake Viejo Realty, and then at 22 had a brain aneurysm and bought a real estate office. And at 23 lost that office and got a divorce.
Oh.
I got married at 18, divorced at 22, almost 23. And that experience was sort of life-changing for me, going through a divorce, basically realizing that I wasn't the manager that I thought I would be when I bought a real estate office. And at that point in time, I had an opportunity to go to work for Jim Rohn. Some of you may know him as the personal development speaker, trainer, that trained Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other people. And I worked for Jim for 2 years, and it was a truly life-changing experience for me. What?
How did that came around?
When I was struggling after I bought my real estate office, I started going to Jim's seminars.
Oh.
And so I went to all of his seminars, and I actually hired him to do some consulting with me individually, trying to save my real estate office. And I got to know him, and when I finally sold that office and went through a divorce, I happened to be at a seminar with Jim, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm thinking about, just taking 6 months off and just trying to figure out my life. And he said, well, that's fine. Why don't you come to work for me for a little while? And I had the opportunity to work for him for 2 years. I probably would have never left, except Mark Hughes, the founder of Herbalife, went to Jim at that point in time and said, listen, I want to buy your services for the rest of your life.
Oh.
And I'll pay you $2 million a year as a salary to only train for Herbalife.
Wow.
And so Jim closed down his public seminar company and let us all go, and Jim, for the rest of his life, only trained for Herbalife.
What year was that?
That was 1985. And in 1986, I got back into real estate and started doing some marketing. And some of you know Walter Sanford, who was at the time the top agent in Long Beach. Walter hired me to do some marketing for him, and I started writing the ads for Walter Sanford, and that ended up leading to the creation of Hofstra Advertising, the advertising company that created marketing materials for realtors. After a couple of years of doing that, I started doing seminars on marketing and advertising for real estate and started traveling throughout the United States. And I ran Hofstra Advertising for 29 years. At our peak, we had 160 people, and we're in the Back Bay. We had an office building there. Then started doing all kinds of real estate investment and started building houses. In probably 2004, we started developing land in Utah. In 2006, we bought 4 huge parcels of land and put together development to build 400 houses in just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And in 2008, right after we put in all the roads and everything else,
That just crashed.
everything crashed. The bank that was doing our construction loan went into receivership,
Oh my God, no.
and I lost pretty much everything.
Is that bank Amtrust by any chance?
What?
Amtrust?
No.
Yeah, that's what got me.
So that was a very interesting experience. And then in 2009, when everything was falling apart, my partner decided he no longer wanted to be associated with real estate agents and basically said, I'm out of here. This mess is yours to clean up. So I got a crash course in business partnership mistakes. Not having clear buy-sell agreements, not having clear, and my partner at Hofstra Advertising was my best friend for most of my life.
Oh, until then.
Until then, yes. So
Oh, boy.
that was a tough experience. I finally cleaned up that mess. It took me a long time. And I closed down Hofstra Advertising completely in 2015 and started just doing training for real estate companies, primarily locally, because I didn't want to travel anymore. And did a lot of training for Robin right after she went to the South Bay. And she quickly started to work on me to come and work for her. So she actually hired me as the director of coaching. So they had a fairly dysfunctional coaching program up there. So she hired me to come over and take over that and start working with the people that were coaching and training the coaches there. And that's been, 2.5 years ago that I started working with her doing that. And then when she got recruited to First Team, she said, I'll only go if you come with me. And so that's how I ended up here. So I have been a licensed realtor since 1979. I've been involved in the real estate industry, selling actively for a long time. I also served 6 years as a director for the Orange County Association of Realtors, and have probably seen everything in and around the real estate space. So that's my background. Along the way, I did meet Janet, who is my current wife. And fortunately, I've been married to her for 33 years. So the second time around, I definitely got it right. And it has definitely been a process. Jim had a huge influence on both of us. My wife, Janet, also worked for a wonderful lady named Louise Pomeroy. She was the founder of Abigail Abbott Personnel, and her and Jim Rohn were very good friends. Janet was one of her managers and eventually vice president of Abigail Abbott when I married her. And so Louise and Jim have had huge influence on our life early on, getting us on a personal development track. And that has, to me, made all the difference in how things have turned out for us. And we've had a good fortune. We've traveled around the world. We've got 3 grown kids, all boys. We've got 4 grandkids. My oldest son is a firefighter, and he runs a sports memorabilia business called Game Day Legends. And my middle son is between jobs at the moment. He used to work for me at Hot Charter Advertising. He sort of does a little bit of everything as far as web development, design, and then for the last 4 or 5 years, he's been working in sort of personal development training, helping people that are going through addiction recovery.
Oh, wow, that's good.
And then my youngest son is a travel blogger.
That's fun.
And
And travels.
he travels. 6 years ago when he got out of college, he told Janet and I that he was going to go travel the world, and when he ran out of money, he'd come home and think about getting a job, and he's never run out of money, and probably never will. He makes an incredible living as a travel blogger, and he does hyperlapse photography for tourism boards. So right now he's in Mexico working for the Mexican government. He's getting ready to go to New York to do a 2-week spot for tourism in the state of New York, not New York City. And then he's going to the Philippines. He's going to the Czech Republic for the 3rd time. And he currently speaks at a lot of travel blogger conferences and is becoming fairly well known in the travel blogging world. And I'm amazed that he and his wife literally have no home but travel.
The worst
Homes are
anywhere. Yeah.
Home is a suitcase to them. So they live an absolutely amazing lifestyle. Every year my wife and I go try and go spend a week with them somewhere. So we've spent weeks with them in Bali, in Korea, in, Thailand, Vietnam, India. So they're everywhere.
Do they have children?
They do not have children.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're having children, but, they haven't eliminated that possibility, but it does not seem like that's their path. So, they're in their early 30s still, so there's still some time, but not a lot of time. They can take that path. And it's interesting, I learned a huge amount from my oldest and youngest son about their businesses. Game Day Legends has become incredibly well branded in certain circles in sports memorabilia. Game Day Legends is the #1 golf memorabilia company in the U.S.
Wow.
And Eric is the exclusive supplier for high-end Tiger Woods sports memorabilia.
Wow.
He's also the largest Michael Jordan sports memorabilia seller out there in the U.S. So he does some amazing things. If you're looking for high-end, very expensive sports memorabilia gifts, check out his website. He does some incredible things. And then I do learn a lot from Scott, traveling and blogging, and they built a following of people, I mean, that is amazing.
What's the name of his blog?
His blog is Bobo and Chi Chi. BoboandChiChi.com. That's their nicknames for each other.
Oh.
So Scott is Bobo and Megan is Chi Chi. And that's their blog.
Well, Greg, opening up like that to us has made you multidimensional.
All right.
And so many things that you shared with me, I have a new respect for your background.
All right.
Your early days, the Marines, my goodness.
Yes.
And along the way, I have become a terminal student. I started my college career in my 30s and ended up getting my MBA from UCI. I was actually the first graduating class of the Paul Marat School of Business
Wow.
Excellent.
in 2005 when Paul donated and became
30 million or something?
30 million to UCI.
Yeah.
So where is your, like, sounds like both your son has those branding. Is it from you or like where's your marketing? Like you started a marketing firm, where's your
So when I started my real estate,
talent from? Like did you learn from someone?
when
Or
I
you
started
just-
real estate, I went to work for Century 21 and went through the typical, training program. This is, go out, do listing presentations, go out and knock on doors, and this was back in, 1979. So I went out and knocked doors very consistently for my first year in real estate. And my first year was a little frustrating. I sold 2 houses, and I couldn't figure out why I was not doing better. Now, at the time, I was young, I was in the Marine Corps, so I made every mistake that new agents do. I thought for sure that I needed credibility. Since I was young, I had a Marine Corps haircut, I looked even younger. So I went, and the first thing I did as a new agent was got a GRI. Went to every training program on real estate, and I became the most knowledgeable broke agent out there.
It's a brand.
When I realized that was not working, I finally started taking classes at Cal State Fullerton on marketing. And I fortunately ran across a marketing professor that truly got me to think about things differently. And I think part of it was that he was not a realtor. And we had a big project that was represented a large percentage of our grade, and we had to do a marketing campaign for any product or service that we picked. So being a real estate agent, I'll do a campaign for myself. And I thought it was an incredibly brilliant campaign. I was very proud of it. And I typically got straight A's, and I got a C- on this class. Yes. And I was devastated, so I went to my professor and said, why am I getting a C-? And he said, well, what's your product? And I said, well, real estate. He said, that's why you're getting a C-.
Your product's you.
I did not quite understand that at that time. So I had brilliant houses, beautiful pictures of everything else. And he said, you are not selling the product that you're marketing until you can actually tell me what is your product really doing and what's different about it. You can't market effectively. And that class truly turned my marketing around. He had me do something that was very interesting. he had me go back through the MLS, and again, this was back when it was much harder. You had to do it manually. There was no computer systems and everything online like it is today. He had me go back, and the year that I started farming, he had me figure out how many listings did Century 21 take in the 600 homes that I farmed. And the year before I started farming there, they took 4 listings. I farmed, knocked on it religiously for a year. And the year, at that end of the year, Century 21 took 16 listings, but I only took 1 of them. But 9 listings came in to people at my Century 21 office that all came in on floor time.
Uh-huh.
Now, I still remember the day that I walked into a listing that I had talked to this guy numerous times, and he kept saying, well, you know, next year I'm going to sell my house, I'll call you then. I couldn't believe it. He listed his house with somebody in my office, but he didn't call me. Then I went to the broker open, and he happened to be there, and when I walked in, he was so friendly. Like, Greg, it's good to see you, blah, blah, blah. I was devastated by it. I finally got enough nerve to call him up and said, why didn't you list with me?
Right.
And he said, well, don't you share it all?
Oh.
So he thought he was doing you a favor.
And
Oh.
all the stuff that I had farmed with was all the standard Century 21 marketing materials. My name was always small. Century 21 was always big. So I changed that, and my second year I built a brand, and I called myself the Cordova King. So if you're familiar with the Cordovas, I specialize in, the smallest unit was 950 square feet, the largest was 1,650. There was 4 different models. I specialized in the Cordovas and became the Cordova King. And people always say, well, how did you become the Cordova King? I called myself the Cordova King before I had ever sold a Cordova. And my second year in real estate, I did $3.5 million in sales back when we were selling $100,000 homes.
Wow.
So that changed the way I looked at marketing. So I did some very clever trade marketing. A lot of people liked the marketing that I had done out there. That also got me to believe that I knew a lot, and hence made me decide I should buy a real estate office. You know, back then, even though I was doing very well, I had worked myself all the way up to a 60% commission split. When I started at Century 21, I was on a 35% commission split. Now, people today
That's
can't.
high? 60%?
That was for the very top producing agents.
Wow.
Like when you started at Century 21, you were on a 35% split.
That's incredible.
So, you know, I always look at people today and think,
I know, right?
their commission splits are so high. And so that was how I got into owning a real estate office. And I did start doing some marketing for a guy named Phil up in Long Beach. Just, he liked what I did, and I started writing marketing, different things for him, and that's sort of what I started studying marketing. I read every marketing book I could get my hands on, and that started sort of my love affair with marketing and advertising, trying to understand it.
But Greg, most companies, they don't want you to have your branding bigger than their brand. So how do you go around that? Because I know certain companies, they allow you to do that, but for example, First Team, their branding is at the top. So.
And I think they're changing. They're changing now.
But yeah, they're
That's
totally
fair,
fine
that's
with you
fine.
developing your
Yeah.
own brand.
Do
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
this.
because,
So-
yeah.
That was one of the things that I talked to Cam about and asked him personally. I said, you know, if I come, I know I'm going to teach agents how to become the brand.
Right.
And are you okay with that? And he definitely told me yes. So to me, you are your own brand. You've got to develop it. I do think the company brand gives you credibility, but understand your personal brand is the
Yeah.
lead generation. The company brand is what gives you credibility.
Yeah.
And you just need to understand when to use what. And to me, it's like, let your personal brand get you into the door, let the company brand.
Get you the
Mark,
Get you the-
the highest price for the seller.
So to me, working together with a good brand always works well, but that's really the key. And it has been an interesting challenge. The biggest challenge my company faced was that we were really one of the first people that really tried to make agents the star. And we did have a lot of resistance from companies. We actually got banned from training in Century 21 offices in Orange County.
Your marketing company.
Yes, because Century 21 did not want us to have the individual agents.
They still like that?
And obviously I was with Century 21, so I had started getting to know them. The Brokers Council at the time was 107 offices, and they banned us from talking to or doing anything, and that's what actually got us to go outside of the state. And I'm probably much more famous in the real estate community outside of California than I am in California. It's really weird. Even though I've lived in Huntington Beach for a long, long time, we never were that big here because it just seemed like, in some ways, Orange County is behind the times in marketing
Wow.
compared to a lot of other places. So
Really? You would think they'd be, I don't know.
you would think. I mean, it's weird because outside of California, if you say you're from California, you have instant credibility.
Right.
In California, especially in Orange County, when I'm from Orange County,
Yeah,
Oh, you-
usually like that.
what do you know?
Yeah, because I visited one of my friends in Nevada, in Reno, and I was shocked how they market over there. It's so primitive. It's like things we did back in 1999 or 2000. It's like they send out flyers with the thing we used to advertise in, those home magazines. And it wasn't even that fancy.
Well, there are definitely different pockets of different places. To me, I do think that, I look at New York City, Manhattan, still has some of the most cutting edge marketing out there, even though the real estate market in some ways is one of the most antiquated. They really don't have a great MLS in Manhattan. The major companies really control it, which is backwards to me. But some of the individual agents have built unbelievable brands that have done phenomenally well for themselves, even though they're part of a bigger organization. Along the way, I've had the good fortune to work with people like Phil Herman, who's consistently been one of the top 100 agents in the United States, sells 500 or 600 transactions a year, and I've coached him for probably the last 20 years. And then people like Robin, other top producing agents around the country that I've had the good fortune to work with and become friends with. So it's,
Now, do you notice that most of the top agents or mega agents that used to call it KW, do they have a team, or does it matter to have a team, or?
some of them do, some of them don't, and it just depends on the systems. So teams have become a weird thing that you have to define. So a lot of people say, I'm building a team, and they hire an agent that they basically get to prospect for them. To me, that is not a real team. So Phil Herman has a team, and he has a team of buyer's agents. They do not prospect at all. They take the buyers that Phil generates and do incredibly well because he has so much business that he can't handle. A team really only comes from excess business beyond what an agent can actually handle. You can't you can't hire somebody to come on and say, your job is to prospect. That's, to me, you're becoming a broker within a brokerage.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So most of the top teams have systems and they have employees that do certain functions, but they're not prospecting functions. So like, I've known Alan Daub for a long time. He's the #1 agent in Philadelphia. Many people know him as the Condo King. He's consistently in the top 50 in the US. And he has a marketing person, he has a staff of professionals that market him. And yes, if you call Alan today, you don't always get Alan, but you aren't going to get somebody that's prospecting in Alan's stead. So to me, it's like, it's understanding what the team is. When teams started getting popularized, I think KW actually did it where they said, well, hire all these people to prospect underneath you.
Right.
And that became a team concept. Well, to me, that's a concept for failure and frustration. Because the team members are usually very unhappy. Now they're prospecting and they're still giving up a huge percentage of their commission. So to me, you have to define what is a team. And as you get more and more successful, you're going to bring staff on to have a life, but they aren't functioning the way I talk to define, most agents define a team. So.
Previously when we had a team, they would just look at us like give us business, and we go make the sale, then we get half of it, you get half of it, and you pay all the expenses and everything. And then if there wasn't enough business, they would get frustrated. So like, give us business, you got to help us with our livelihood. It's like, no, it's the other way around. It's like you're supposed to help the company grow, not that we give you something that we could have done it ourselves.
So when Robin's team was doing really well, she had so many listings, and Robin did not want to work with buyers. So she had a number of buyer's agents that literally made $100,000 to $150,000 a year just out of the buyers that Robin generated and gave to them. So they were fed from the listings that Robin generated, and to me that works effectively. But they were never prospecting. They were taking the leads that she was generating elsewhere, and now.
But she didn't have time to do it anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
that's right. So you got to be getting to a point that you have enough business coming in that
And one of the things people forget, Robin's team had their own office. They were not in a bigger office. So she developed the culture, the atmosphere, everything else within them exactly the way she wanted it. And it was very high energy, very service oriented. And that little group of people did a huge amount of business, but they did it their way in a very fun, exciting way. So they didn't have the influence of what I call, the weird teams that sometimes, people think about.
Yeah.
What do you think, Greg? This current fascination with teams, both by the agents and the consumer, because I teach real estate principles, and so the new kids, they all want to join a team when they get their license.
Really?
Yes. Because
Well-
I think they
Not a
think
bad
it's,
thing.
I think they think it's the
It's a good
road
start.
to dollars.
I think it's a road, they think it's
Yeah.
a road to learning the industry. So
Yes.
the number
I
one
tell them
mistake,
no.
the number one
Good
mistake
advice.
new agents make is they think they need to know everything about real estate.
Yes.
And this is not a business about real estate, it's a business about attracting clients. So they look at it as, and they think that if I join a team, I won't have to do as much prospecting. And then they get on the team and all they do is prospecting and they're frustrated. So again, this is the perception problem. And then you take a look at, the training that's going on, starting with Howard Britton, Mike and Tom Ferry, Floyd Wickman's, and Gina Wickman's stuff that is carried on. They all promoted this weird thing of, well, if you aren't good at prospecting, hire a team and have them prospect for you. And that tends never to work really well. I mean, you do see some people, but they're just like, they to me remind me of the old Century 21 model where we'll hire you and we'll just keep you as a body. I mean, Century 21 was very good at attracting people, and their philosophy was, well, if you'll just do 1 or 2 transactions a year, we'll make money. And part of it is they could make money because they were, all those people were on a 35% commission split. And when you as a broker, it's like,
Want new people.
it was almost an incentive to keep them doing 1 or 2
Do they
transactions a
start
year.
at 35 still right now?
No,
No.
that was back in '79.
Because in my experience, anybody can generate leads. It's not hard to generate leads, it's easy. But it's following up with the leads
Yeah.
and converting the leads
Yes.
to business has been my personal challenge, and I think that's probably the truth for any agent.
Well, and so
Yeah.
lead generation and conversion to me is the same thing. It's, most people make a contact, but it's really not a lead until you actually get them to the point where they're ready to buy or sell.
Right.
So it's following up and doing that lead conversion system that makes the,
That takes the skill, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if it takes the skill or the systems.
Got it. It's just,
Yeah.
Most great realtors are people,
uh-huh.
and they don't either, they aren't willing to pay the price to get a great systems person in them, or they just don't get systems. But the great agents always are great people, and they have systems behind them. And there's only a few that are, actually I can't think of any that have the skills themselves on both sides. They all have somebody else out. So Phil Herman is the front person. Kathy is his business manager that runs his systems. Phil would not be Phil without Kathy. Kathy would not be as successful as she is without Phil. I mean, to me, it's like there's always a yin and a yang,
Yeah.
usually in great systems.
They're good for each other.
Yeah. All right, so go to work.
Thank you.
And next Monday, 9 o'clock, and we'll get Peter to come and share his background, so I get to go.